Social Security is not a retirement safety net. All right, we're starting to get a little bit more people throwing some stuff at Social Security in our full retirement age and stuff, which we need to nip in the bud ASAP. We cannot let this gather any steam. And this point about Social Security not being a retirement safety net, we're going to talk here about just a second. But the intellectuals are starting to gather, and they're starting to say, you know something, your full retirement age should be based on your work history as opposed to just what your age is. And look, we need to separate the intellectuals from deciding our Social Security. Let's keep it political because at least we have somewhat of a say. If the intellectuals get involved, they're going to remove us because we're peons and they know better than us how to live our lives. Anyway, so here's my man Rick. What's his name? Rick Kaler. I actually have talked to Rick probably 10 years or something like that ago one time. An interesting guy. He had written an article about South Dakota, and he said South Dakota's great. It's not as cold as you think. It's sunny. It's dry, and I said I'm interested in that. So I think I emailed him or called him. I can't remember, but I talked to him for a little bit, and yeah, he was all right. Odd guy, not a bad guy. Just he struck me as a little bit odd, and that's okay. I'm odd. But I said, oh, man. So anyway, that was the reason why I said maybe I should look at South Dakota as a place to retire. And I like South Dakota. I like the Black Hills. Love the Black Hills area. It's just remote, dude. There's all there is to it. It's remote. If you're like I'm from Maine. Maine's remote. But Boston, only an hour and a half down 95 and you're in Boston. You know, an hour and you're in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So South Dakota wasn't like that, dude. The South Dakota, Rapid City, I don't know, it takes, 5 hours to get to Denver or something like that? It's crazy. So yeah, not for me, man. I also like deciduous trees and things of that nature. The maples, the oaks, what do I have out there? I can't remember. I always forget the oaks, not the maples. It's not an oak. Maybe it is an oak tree. Anyway, all right, so let's go to this article. And I just got my hair cut, so I'm looking good. Hey, handsome. Hey, handsome. Oh, by the way, if you like the videos I do and you want to support me, buy me a cup of coffee, dude. It's in the notes. Just a cup of coffee. $5, I think. I can't. Maybe it's. I can't remember. Decaf, baby. Buy me a cup of coffee. And the doobie-doo down there. All right, so here's Rick. Social Security is not a retirement safety net. And he goes over a little bit about how Social Security came to be. Talk about Germany's first national retirement benefit was passed in 1981. The life expectancy, or the average retirement age at that point was 70, where the average life expectancy was 40. I can already see where we're going here. In 1916, they lowered the retirement age to 65, which became the globally accepted standard. It's almost like Germany is in charge of things. And then you start wondering, did the Nazis actually lose, given what happened with NASA later on? I'm just throwing it out there. Werner von Braun and whatnot. That's crazy. Operation Paperclip? What? Did the Nazis actually lose? Has Germany always been in charge of things? I don't know. Anyway, the average American... So here's where Rick goes off the... I don't understand. This continued. All right, so Roosevelt established Social Security in 1935 with 65 as the national retirement age. The average American died at. Then he said this continued the practice of establishing a retirement age well over the actual life expectancy. The average American died at 60, 5 years before being able to collect Social Security. Right. I can't believe Rick is doing this, man. Come on. The average American died at 60. All right, so let's go to 1930. We're going to show you from Society of Actuaries, age at death in 1930. All right, so we're going to see down here, the most common age of death was 75 after infant mortality. All right, so if you survived being a newborn, you're likely to die when? Not at 60, right here. At 40, your life expectancy was 70. At 65, your life expectancy was 77, right here. The most common age of death was 75 years old. So what Rick is conflating here, this boggles my mind they did this. The average American died at 60. Okay. But if I'm a soon-to-be retiree in 1935, do I care what the average American died? Because the average American consisted of the babies being born with massive infant mortality. And because the science back then was so structured in terms of not taking care of cleanliness, washing your hands, picking up after yourself, doctors in Austria, Vienna, what they'd do is they'd deliver baby A, they wouldn't clean their hands, they'd deliver baby B, wouldn't clean their hands, deliver baby C, and whatever diseases and crap they're carrying on their hands, they infected mom A, mom B, and mom C. The babies and the moms die. Ignaz Semmelweis says, hey, let's not do this. Let's clean up after ourselves. Then we finally stopped we stopped pooping in freaking trash cans and throw it out in the middle of the street, which would get in the sewage and our water supply. We started having municipalities which had clean water, water treatment plants and things of this nature. So not only were washing our hands, there's a picture actually, it's pretty interesting. In New York City, you have this dead hole, like in 1910 or 1920. You got these kids playing in like this gutter, and you got this dead horse like sitting right there. You know what I'm saying? And no wonder why people were dying back then so early, because there's so much freaking germ. I'm not even quite sure I believe the germ whole thing, but still, there's so much bacteria, germs, all that stuff. And I probably do, frankly. I don't know. I've looked a little bit in the germ versus terrain theory. I'm not convinced in the terrain theory. Let's just put it that way. But I'm open for that stuff because I'm a conspiracy theorist. Anyway, the point being is we learn how to wash our hands. We learn how to have a municipality with water treatment plants, and now we just fluoride everybody, which is bad in and of itself, but at least it's not killing us in infant mortality. All right, let's keep going here. So Rick conflates again the average American who's a baby being born, all right here. The average life expectancy at birth was 60 years old. Again, if I'm 1935 and I'm 60 years old, I not only have survived the average life expectancy, but I don't care that the average life expectancy is 60. I care what my life expectancy, which would be in the mid-70s, which means I will collect Social Security at 65, and I'll have it for probably 10, if not a little bit more years, probably 12. You cannot, it drives you, you can't conflate these things, man. You can't conflate the average life expectancy of a newborn. Once you survive that initial phase of the threat of death as an infant mortality, your life expectancy now is not 60. It's well into the 70s. It's just that financial advisors don't get this, drives up the wall. Basically, you had to win the and it's part two. Another thing. Basically, you had to win the longevity lottery to ever see a dime of Social Security. Again, the baby born right here who survives, he's not going to look at Social Security until he's in his late 90s, in the late 90s. He doesn't care what Social Security is, a baby in 1935. He's not going to worry about it until in the late 90s when he's in his 60s. So this idea that you had to win basically had to win the longevity lottery. No, you just had to be born alive, and then you're going to win the longevity lottery. If you survive child mortality, infant mortality, you were going to get Social Security, Rick. Come on. Just look, again, if you survived till you're 40 years old in 1930, your average life expectancy was 70. You had 30 years left to live, which means you had 5 years of positive Social Security, and you're only paying, how much did you pay in tax back then? Oh yeah, hardly anything. Weird. It's just weird, man. It drives up the wall. It wasn't until 1970 that the average person lived till age 70, long enough to collect Social Security benefits. So I was born in 1970. I'm 52 now. All right. Born in 1970, I'm 52. The average person lived in. So the average person born in 1970 was going to live until he's 70 years old, 2040. Long enough to collect Social Security benefits for 5 years. Okay. But why would me as an infant in 1970 have any impact on me as a 52-year-old person now? It doesn't make any sense. He's basically saying the average person was born in 1970, had a life expectancy of 70 years old, and the Social Security age was at 65, so you only collect for 5 years. It's just conflating infant mortality with people who survive infant mortality. All right. Is retirement at 65 an optimum age today? All these professors say no. This guy says, Professor somewhat Cohen from the University of Southern California says, retirement age under 65 makes no sense for most workers. Okay. Some clown from Georgia called retirement in the 70s reasonable from a cognitive perspective for people in knowledge-based skill jobs. What the hell is that? What's a knowledge-based job? Is a carpenter not knowledge-based? Of course, is Lisa Ramsey Hammond. Come on. I guarantee she has her pronouns. If retirement age is set based on the capabilities or competence of employees, there's no reason to have a retirement age in the 60s. Well, easy for you saying your freaking clown job at the University of Georgia. It's stupid, man. Then, two, staying in the workforce can maintain our cognitive abilities. And I can't believe, again, I'm just stunned by this. Some research has even found that working longer may help prolong our lives. This may be why two different clients have answered my question, What does retirement mean to you? It means you die. Well, two different clients need to recognize they're using faulty statistics. All right, so think about this. Joe Kuhn asked that when we were doing our live stream the other day. He said, what do you think about people who die sooner after they retire? I said, inherently they do, because some do, because a lot of people who retire, they have to because they're already sick. They already have massive amounts of diabetes, massive amounts of cancer, massive heart attack, breast cancer, whole thing. So they're like, man, I'm 58 years old. I have breast cancer, whatever it is. I don't know what breast, I'm not sure. That's what killed my wife. My wife's mom died from leukemia, but she had breast cancer too. Anyway, so she retires from leukemia. She has only got 2 years left to live. So she retires because she's dying. See what I'm saying? So now you can say, look, when they retire, they die. Yeah, because they had to retire because they couldn't work with leukemia. But people don't understand that. They say, look, the average life expectancy of a retiree is 62. Okay, let's take the average life expectancy of people who aren't included in the leukemia, the diabetes, the freaking heart attacks, all this crap, and cancer. Look at it comparatively. You got to compare apples to apples. It's just statistically, a lot of people just don't get basic stats. It's just sad, actually. They really need to read Nicholas Nassim Taleb, Benoit Mandelbrot, and things of that nature. All right. So what does it mean? Retirement to you means you die. Okay, that's silly. As age 65 may have been the standard retirement age, that doesn't make it the right choice for everyone. Okay, well, I'll tell you what right now, if you're going to do a retirement age based on your cognitive perspective and your physical labor, let me show you the comment I put in here, because that's like this, I'm going to share with you. This guy gets it, Larry Siegel. While Social Security may not be a national pension plan, according to the letter of the law, it most certainly is a national pension plan, 100%. As a redistributive feature, the lowest paid workers get a much larger benefit per dollar contributed than the highest paid workers. Exactly. The payments are in real dollars. And as most pension plans, there's a fairly onerous work requirement. 10 years to get any benefit at all, unless you're a spouse, all right, or a widow. 35 years at a fairly high wage to get the maximum. Yep. It's 100% a pension plan. It is a national retirement safety net. It's 100%. And then Larry, at least to his credit, he gets one important detail on the length of the time an individual can expect to receive Social Security depends not on the overall life expectancy, but the life expectancy at reaching your full retirement age at 65 or 67. 100%. Couldn't agree more. But where I think Larry goes off the thing here, should we start the full retirement age at 6.1 years later in 2023 than we did in 1935? So that'd be 71.1 because we've increased our life expectancies. No, we should not do that, man. That's silly. It's silly. He thinks it's a very reasonable proposal for think workers, or as the non-routine cognitive workers. Physical laborers would need a carve out allowing them to retire younger. That's just stupid, man. So you're going to basically discriminate against them on what their line of work is. And so I respond, as far as Larry does say, he used to be a fiery young libertarian, 100%. I used to be too. I was also a fiery young libertarian a generation ago, studied economics at George Mason. And I very much supported privatizing Social Security back then. Not anymore. We need to make Social Security more solvent, raise the payroll tax 50 basis points on each side, and for people who make over $1 million, change QDI and LTCG to ordinary income. Use those revenues solely to fund Social Security and not to send to a military adventure in Ukraine, for instance. Lastly, let's just kill in its infancy the idea of basing our retirement age on one's job description. I'm in a non-physically demanding job now, but I was in the infantry for 8 years, and I did all kinds of labor-intensive jobs in my younger days. How would intellectuals determine my retirement age? Based on my last 5 years of work history? Let's keep the intellectuals as far removed from this as possible. While I have much disdain for Bill Buckley, I did always like when he said he'd rather be governed by the first 200 people in the Boston phone book than the faculty at Harvard, 100%. So kudos to that guy right there. Good hand. Look at that. It was fresh cut, right on. Anyway, infant mortality in the old days made life expectancies at birth low. If you survived childbirth, though, your life expectancy really wasn't that much different than it is now. A few years less, but not anything to suggest we'll be living to 120 like Rick Edelman says. Why was the infant mortality so prevalent? We already talked about that in Semmelweis. So if it's 1935 and I'm in my 50s or 60s, why do I care what the life expectancy of a newborn is? I don't. It matters not if the average life expectancy at birth is 60 and the national retirement age is 65. For the newborns in 1935, it will be 1995 when they'll be thinking of Social Security anyway. To conflate the two, the soon-to-be retiree and the newborn baby, makes no sense. Anyway, so there you go. One of Social Security is absolutely a national safety net, and it needs respect as such, man. Come on. The idea they're going to take Social Security, it's mind-boggling to me. Right? And people can do whatever they want to do. I don't care. You can plan that they're going to take it away from you. That's fine. I'm not going to yell at you. I think you're making a horrendous mistake because what you're probably going to end up doing is working longer than you need. You shouldn't do that if it's stressing you out. I mean, if you like your job, more power to you. But if it's stressing you out and your crappy old job and your boss is harassing you and you got to do DEI and you got to take jabs and all this stuff, dude, why do that to yourself? Now, don't forget, I talked about this in my book, by the way. You can retire on Social Security. And you should get it because it's a national safety net that you pay taxes into. You've been paying taxes into it since you've been working. If you have over the table income, they withhold Social Security for you and your employer. So both you and your employer have been paying 6.2. That's 12.4 for both you guys. That's not including the Medicare part. All right, so you're both paying 6.2, and you've been paying that basically since 1990. When they started doing 6.2, they started doing 6.2 in 1989. So since 1989, you've been paying 6.2%. All right, so my first job was in 1983. I paid 5.4, and my employer paid 5.4. I only made a couple $100. All right, but basically, so 1983, I've been paying Social Security into Social Security since 1983. So now it is 2023 minus 1983. What's that, 40 years? Yeah, 40 years. So I paid 5 years more into Social Security than I'm going to get. All right, so if you think that they're just going to take away Social Security when you've been paying into it for 35, 40 years, remember, how they figure out your Social Security benefits, they take your top 35 years of indexed earnings. Index, essentially the average wage index. All right, and so if you have 40 years of index earnings, 5 of those years are not included. You pay the taxes, you don't get that money back. It goes in the system. That's just a fact, Jack. So you think they're going to take that away from you when they've already taken away 5 years of your earnings? Now, if you only have 30 years of earnings, you have 5 goose eggs. So you have 30 years of indexed earnings plus 5 goose eggs. So that will be a detriment to your overall benefit. Probably not much, depending on your income, as I've done videos on that before. But again, if you have more than 35 years of earnings, which most of us do, frankly, because you think most of us start working in our teens, probably weren't making that much money, we'll stop in our 60s. So we'll say we started, I was 30, so by the time I'm 60, it'll be 2030. 2030 minus 1983. I'll have 47 years of paying tax in the Social Security. Only 35 of those years are included. So 12 of those years, regardless of how much tax I paid, I don't get any benefit for whatsoever. And you won't either. You think they're going to take that money away from you, plus they're going to reduce your benefit too? You're crazy. Well, if you want to think that way, it's fine. I don't get it. All right. Love your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to my Locals channel. We're going live a lot. We went live for an hour and a half yesterday. It was fun, dude. Talking smack. It was great. We'll see you.